Premier League predictions. Our weekly show is now becoming bi-weekly, and the fact that we're doing it twice a week. We've got midweek games here. We've hit that busy period of the year. December times come where there's football basically every day of the week, and I absolutely love it. It's going to make it half of these prediction videos to keep up, but I'm absolutely cannot wait to do it, and hopefully you guys are getting some more content, which I'm sure you won't complain about. We've come here to game week, I guess 15, in the sense that it's not a weekend, it's midweek action. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Premier League football. We cannot complain with that at all. And we come off the back of match week 14, where it was absolutely incredible. Goals galore, beautiful goals. Sunday night, there was just thrillers everywhere. And, you know, if that's half as good as last week, this midweek fixtures will be very, very exciting. In terms of our prediction points from last week, I managed 8. So a much improved effort for the last 3 weeks. Got a perfect score there for the West Ham Crystal Palace game, on top of some other correct predictions. So that then takes my total now for the season to 94 points. If you're new to the channel wondering how our prediction point system works, it's 3 points for a correct scoreline, 1 point for a correct result, and obviously 0 if you get neither. So happy with my last week's effort, improved for the last 3 weeks, so we'll take that, getting closer to that triple digits, which is very, very important. Obviously some big games in midweek, not as big I guess as the weekend, but still some interesting ones to look at, some 2 sort of top 6 deciding sort of clashes in there, and a few towards the bottom end, which teams need some massive wins. So we've got a lot of good action, some hard predictions to go ahead and predict. Let's get straight into the video. Our first game of the midweek fixtures is Wolves and Burnley. Interesting one, this one. Obviously, Wolves coming off an interesting sort of game versus Arsenal. They were very poor for the first 30 minutes, while Arsenal were probably at their best they've been all season. But as the game grew, so did Wolves. They adjusted to obviously that new midfield with missing a lot through suspension and a few injuries in there. And obviously when you got the likes of Doyle in there and Bellegarde and these young sort of faces, inexperienced faces, you will struggle against an Arsenal side who is very experienced. You do come second in the Premier League last season, so that is understandable. But as the game grew on, as the likes of Cunha got more touches, as Hwang got more involved, you saw Wolves build into that game. And a 2-1 result, you know, it probably wasn't that far off it, because Wolves were really probably the better team come the second half, considering Arsenal sort of down tools. And it was impressive in the way they kept fighting, they kept in the game, and they ended up, you know, making a real fist of it come the last sort of 5 to 10 minutes there. So respectable, so that they've had some great results in recent weeks, some unlucky ones as well, but they go back home, and home comfort is where Wolves are on their best work this season. They've beaten Tottenham, they've taken points off Aston Villa, they've beaten City, they've drawn to Newcastle, so that it's a place they really enjoy going to. And with players on the way back, I can see Wolves continuing to produce these great sort of performances. I think under Gary O'Neill, it's not purely counter-attack football, and it's not obviously all front-footed. It's a great balance between the both. And I think when they come against a Burnley side, he like to play in possession. They'll know the right times when to counter-press and then when to hold possession as well. I think we saw against Arsenal, when they're at their best, they'll either press their Arsenal back line out of nowhere, just spring a press them, you know, get them a bit off guard. And then when they knew that Arsenal had the possession, the control, they'd sit in, they'd absorb some pressure. The likes of Max Kilman with great work at the back. Ait-Nouri's growing game by game. Semedo had a really good game after a poor start. And they'll continue to develop from there. But I guess for me, the key is to get touches to Hwang, to Cunha in those sort of final third areas, because they didn't see it for much of the first half and Wolves had no threat. But once these sort of players got their feet on the ball, they look instantly more like a threat and more close to scoring goals. In terms of Burnley, obviously the great 5-0 win over Sheffield United. Company keeps his job for a few more weeks, I guess. But no, their best win in the Premier League history since they've been there. An important performance, gives them confidence. But I think, like I said in the podcast, it's not going to change the way they play. They will continue to play this front-footed style of football in possession. And I think, once again, it might go to their detriment here with a Wolves team that's really good at counter-pressing, as I said, and springing presses on teams to get them off guard. We've seen it's already cost Burnley a few times this season, and I think it could be their downfall once again here. Wolves also a harder place to travel. We know how good Wolves are at home, so it's going to be a tough one for Burnley. I think Wolves have too much firepower. They have too much confidence and too much form at home. I've got them to win this game 3-1. Our next game is back at Luton. They're back at home. They're hosting Arsenal, an interesting sort of clash. Obviously, Arsenal, one of the most formed teams. Luton are probably the best out of the relegation bunch. They played a solid game versus Brentford. All the goals they conceded came from some deflections and unlucky opportunities. So in terms of their integrity at the back, they're so resilient at the back there, and that's become their formula so far this season, where they've got results and where they've been successful is off the back of solid defence. But you saw Lockyer go down at half time, he'll likely miss. There goes your experience, there goes your leader at the back. And I think it'll be too much because Arsenal, that front three, if they're all going to play, is ridiculous. Even if not, you've got Trossard who can put up there. You've also got Eddie Nketiah, who's always good against his lower clubs to put up front as well. And I think despite how resolute Luton may be at home, and as we saw versus Liverpool, how they can nick points, I just think Arsenal are a step too good for them, because Arsenal don't concede many chances against good teams, let alone a Luton side who have really looked toothless up front unless they concede. So, I think it'll be too much for Luton to handle. Obviously, Arsenal coming off the back of a solid 2-1 win versus Wolves. Luton, obviously, that 3-1 loss to Brentford. So both teams in sort of contrasting forms and obviously contrasting levels in quality. But I think if Luton going to get anything out of this game, they have to try and get Arsenal off guard with a really quick sprung counter attack with Chong and Barkley and these sort of more skilled players involved. I think right now to hit Chong and Morris are their two real only dangerous options, and it has to become from a deep playmaking position like Ross Barkley right now to spring any sort of goal or result. We've seen how good Barkley's been from deep positions. The Liverpool goal, even the goal on the weekend versus Brentford, comes from his play from deep on his own box. So he's very important to this side, but I think Arsenal got too much. They've probably got too much integrity at the back, too much solidity in that team compared to a Liverpool side. So I reckon they win this game 2-0. I can't really see Luton doing much. I know they're good at home, but I think Arsenal just got too many skilled players to beat them. Our next game is probably a similar story. Another relegation candidate, now probably ranked the worst in terms of our power rankings, is Sheffield United. On the back of their 5-0 loss to Burnley, Heckingbottom gets the sack, and it looks like Chris Wilder is going to be coming in to replace him, returning to the helm. But no new manager bounce can stop this Liverpool side from running over this Sheffield United side. We know how good Liverpool are in terms of front of goal. They create chances galore. We saw on the weekend versus Fulham, that incredible game where they came from being 2-1 up to being 2-2 to being 3-2 down, and then eventually winning the game 4-3 on the back of a Trent Alexander masterclass going forward in terms of chance creation, in terms of his two belting finishes. They had 4 worldies scored in that game, but don't get me wrong, Liverpool aren't just worldies. They're a great side in possession, and they're a great team when they have their ball at the field, when they can control games like they will against Sheffield United. They'll create chances for fun. They know how to pass through intricate areas and know how to use the flanks. They know when to play in those tight spots on the edge of the area. They've got players like Sabozza and McAllister who are so strong and so versatile in that midfield area. And they've got great sort of fullbacks in the likes of Simicast and Trent Alexander-Arnold right now, who can pick the ball up and can put dangerous balls into the box or can shoot themselves. And obviously you've got Mo Salah, who, if he plays in this game, will probably score his 200th goal, which would be a massive feat. And you've also got Darwin Núñez, who's a chance machine right now, just cannot convert. And if he starts converting chances, we know how good Diaz is, we know how good Salah is. Looking, I guess, forward from this game, I still reckon they're one of the top candidates for the Premier League title this season. People have been quite negative with the result on the weekend. I think it was a massive positive in the fact that Anfield is still much of a fortress. They can still score goals no matter what's going against them. And I think against the Sheffield United side, they'll put 4 past them. I've got them winning the game 4-0. I think Sheffield United right now, confidence is low. New manager bounce could happen in a few weeks' time, but not against his Liverpool side, not against Jurgen Klopp and his management. Our next game's a very interesting one. It comes from that sort of mid-table bracket. Fulham hosting Nottingham Forest. Fulham, a team in recent weeks who played some really good football. You think back a few weeks ago to that draw versus Brighton. They beat Wolves last weekend. They've obviously gone and put a great performance in on the weekend as well versus Liverpool, losing that game 4-3 where they realistically could have won it. They're now starting to create chances. That's the biggest thing. It was the problem with Wolves and Fulham coming into the season, and now both sides are looking like they've fixed it. Fulham behind the likes of Andreas Pereira's improved performances. You've got Bobby the Cordova-Reid and Wilson in the flanks performing very well. Willian, when he's in the side, has been one of the most influential wingers in the Premier League in terms of the effect he has in his side. And the cornerstone of it all was João Palhinha in that midfield. He pulls the strings, does a bit of everything, can get the ball going forward, is great into a challenge, and he holds that Fulham team together from that midfield. He pulls it all together. And at the back, Tim Ream and Bassey continue to impress me. I know they conceded 4 on the weekend, but these guys have still been so resolute at the back. Anthony Robinson had probably one of his best games of his career on the weekend versus Liverpool, getting up and down that left-hand side. I know it's versus Trent, but still a very impressive performance going forward. and very solid going back as well. So they've come in really, really good form. And they've got players playing some really good football right now. And Marco Silva's finally getting control of this side here. They're getting more chances going forward, so they don't have to be so resolute at the back. You saw scoring 3 versus Liverpool, scoring 3 versus Wolves. So 6 goals in their last 2 games. They've got it there. They come against the Forest side that is really hit and miss right now, really hard to read. You've got great performances from Anthony Elanga. You've got great, moments from Morgan Gibbs-White, but inability to finish as well. So his front 3 is so reliant on Anthony Elanga being in the goals. They need Tyre Wanyu back to that, create that great 1-2 connection up front. The midfield again, I thought that I got over the curve, but they still seem to be struggling in terms of creating chances, creating meaningful chances and real hard-hitting opportunities. And at the back, it just seems to be hit and miss at the moment. Some games they concede too many, sometimes they don't concede many chances. It's just a hard team to read right now. Steve Cooper's a great manager, I believe in him, but right now, that loss to Everton the weekend, 1-0, question marks are back on him, question marks on this team and their progression. Just feels like they're plateauing out a little bit here in that sort of 13th, 14th position. And they've got much more greater heights to reach as if they can reach that. And I think it starts from the midfield in terms of creating chances for the team and not being so open defensively. It's 2 small things they can fix up here. Get that continuity in this squad and get some more chances for these guys up front and you're going to win more games. I think with the 2 forms of the current side, Fulham being at home as well, I think they win this game 2-1. I think currently with the turnaround they've had and the confidence they would have got off that 4-3 loss, despite it being a loss, it was probably a big deal for that football club. So I think they'll come in the more confident side and they'll probably get the job done here in a close 2-1 battle. Our next game keeps us in London. It is Crystal Palace hosting Bournemouth. Another very interesting sort of mid-table clash. Bournemouth aren't obviously there yet, but I see them as a solid mid-table side. The way they're playing their football right now is top half quality. We'll get to them in a little bit, but starting with Crystal Palace, another team again whose performances have been up and down in recent weeks. I think a really, really important point at West Ham on the weekend. Going to the London Stadium is very difficult, and they didn't look out of place. They weren't second best, and at times they looked probably at the better of the 2 sides. West Ham, a team that has been in good form as of recent, been playing some good football. It can be hard sometimes to go there and get a result, but once again they proved that they don't have to score many goals, but they can stay in games, and that midfield and that defence has held up very, very well this season. And when you've got the guy like Ed White up front who just scores anything that goes near him right now, you can get away with results like they did on the weekend. But I think they come up against a Bournemouth side who are going to create a lot of chances. We saw versus Villa that second half, they were the better side, and we're seeing right now in this Iraola system, they have solely adapted. The fullbacks getting a bit more aggressive. We're seeing much more playmaking from midfield, something which Billing will benefit from when he's back in this side as well. And that front 3, I think, is one of the best front 3 outside of the top 6 clubs or top 8 clubs right now. Semenyo is an absolute chance machine. His ability to be clinical, he's still up there in the air. But you got Solanke, one of the more clinical finishers in the Prem, and one of the better English strikers right now in the world. Also got Marcus Tavernier, who's basically the guy for them going forward. Always involved in everything good that Bournemouth do. His pace, his precision, his ability to dribble through defenders is very, very skillful, and is so important to the goal that Solanke scored and the chances that Bournemouth create. I think he's the key for Bournemouth throughout this season, especially if they continue to play this front foot, more orientated football and chance creation style of play that is slightly more advanced than what Gary O'Neill was playing. This team's adjusted well. I think they're playing better football. I think they'll take it to Crystal Palace, and I wouldn't be surprised if Palace have to, be on the back foot for times. I think if Bournemouth get the win, they'll obviously have to absorb a little bit of pressure, like they did versus Villa, for periods of time. Obviously, that comes with playing away, but I think for most parts, they'll be on the ball, they'll be creating the chances, and I think they'll get this win in this game. I think a 2-1 win will come here for Bournemouth. I was very impressed the way they took it to Villa. They would have the confidence from that. They were almost going for 3 wins in a row, the first time they've ever done that in the Premier League on the weekend. So the form's obviously there, the performances are there as well, and the players are in form as well. So, I can see this game just going one way, and that's going to Bournemouth. The fact that they're playing the better football at the current point in time. Our next game is on the South Coast. It's Brighton hosting Brentford, and 2 teams that I used to love watching, and 2 teams this year that have been slightly different to how they usually have been. Both a bit more, struggling in terms of they haven't hit their heights of last season. Brentford, for obvious reasons, losing Ivan Toney makes that difference. For Brighton, it's been really confusing. Obviously, they lost a lot of their good players, but you expect with Brighton to continue to bounce back, and they've shown signs this season. They started the season very, very well, but as of recent weeks, poor mistakes, errors, lapses have really hurt them. They came off their 3-2 loss to Chelsea in the weekend. A lot going on there, a lot of emotional sort of baggage being carried in that game, and both ends really went at it. But at the end of the day, Brighton lose a gettable result. I think out of those two teams, Chelsea and Brighton, I backed Brighton to be a better unit and a better squad. So it was, it left me quite frustrated seeing them, drop that game there. And it came off the back of what Lewis Dunk did a week before. He gets double yellows for abusing the referee. He's missing at the back, the captain, the leader, someone who's been in this team now for years. And you can see in those two early headed goals that Chelsea scored that it was a lack of organisation, lack of picking up the man. And that's something Lewis Dunk would have organised. So they hurt from that situation as well. And outside of the Chelsea going to 10 men, they didn't create enough. They're still not creating much chances. Great being high in possession, but you've got to create some chances for your forwards. They're missing Matoma, they're missing Fatty, I understand that. Buonanotte is a great player. Get him on the ball more often. You saw when he had that half chance, he put it in the back of the net. Get a Drinker when he's playing his chances, because their front four players are so clinical and so skillful, but they haven't created enough for these sort of guys. I think there's a lot of side to side, there's a lot of ball retention, but not enough creativity going on this side, and it's going to take a big positive step to go in that direction. I don't know if it's because the midfield isn't quite what they're used to, but that's a big thing for me. And then also the other end, they're conceding too many goals and too many chances. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to fall in the midfield to a degree, but also a bit of accountability has to be taken in the back four there to try and not concede so many goals, to put so much pressure on this front three to score. Because if you think scoring 2 goals at Chelsea, you should at least get a point. You shouldn't be conceding 3, especially if you're Brighton, a team that's going to a knockout stage in the Europa League. You shouldn't be conceding 3 goals to a Chelsea side who right now still haven't hit their top form. So Brighton a lot to improve on, but obviously coming up against a Brentford side who've built off their defence so far this season, but have now come into their own in terms of attacking play. Put 3+ Luton, have looked a threat in multiple of their last few games. Neil Maupay's in the goals. We know that Visser and Burma are chance creation machines. They just need to start converting more of these chances, and the goals will eventually continue to come. I think for them in this game, against the Brighton side, it's a bit dodgy at the back. Go and attack them. Get Visser and Burma in behind. We know how much Brentford like to play on the counter-attack and play running past and over the top of defenders. This is their chance, because Brighton will have a lot of the ball. They want to dictate the game, especially at home. If they start playing this high line, get in behind them and score some goals. We obviously know what happened last season, that 3-3 towards the back end of last season. I expect to go a very similar way in this game, considering the form of Brighton and Brentford obviously coming into form. I think there'll be goals galore. I've got this game ending in a 2-2 draw. I think Brighton will be the one to come back and equalise later on. I think Brentford, this is the occasion for them to make the most of Brighton and their style of play to suit Brentford's counter-attacking, pacey striker sort of style, where they try and get in behind the fullbacks and the centre-backs and score some goals. So I expect it to be exciting. I think it might be one of the better games from the weekend. I've got a 2-2 draw for this one. Our second biggest game from the weekend, or the week, is Manchester United versus Chelsea at home, back at Old Trafford. United have to respond. A really, really disappointing result to Newcastle United in the fact that they didn't throw a single punch. Obviously, Anthony had the ball in the back of the net, but Harry Maguire was offside. But outside of that, little to nothing was created for United. Newcastle dominated for minute 1. Basically from the start, they were on the ball, they were creating the chances, and it was quite disappointing to see how poor United were and not at the races. You hear a lot about what's happening behind the scenes and not on the pitch. That's Manchester United. We've come to accept that, I guess, now across the last 5 or 6 years. But what Erik ten Hag's been good at in recent years is creating a bounce-back performance which covers up a lot what's going on. And I wouldn't put it past him to do it once again here versus the Chelsea side that, again, probably come in with more confidence and probably some more form, but are still very vulnerable. They rely a lot on their centre-backs to do a lot of the defensive work, and also in recent weeks, the goal scoring as well. They'll get Reece James back, but they lose Conor Gallagher in that midfield. So once again, someone else to fill in this team. They've had 4 red cards, I think, this season. So many changing faces. Really poor from him to get that double yellow on the weekend and miss that game and also this game as well. In terms of Reece James being back, that'll be massive for them in terms of going forward and attacking this slower Manchester United back line. But the most impressive thing right now for United is their young player in Kobbie Mainoo. He's been impressive in terms of he looks like a Casemiro 2.0, picks the ball up off the back line, isn't afraid to swivel, look forward and play the pass or spray the ball around. Him, Maguire, right now, and in terms of Alejandro and Nacho as well. Those three that have been the shining light so far for Manchester United. There have been guys putting in 7+ out of 10 performances week in, week out, or in terms of Kobe Mane the last 2 games. But these are the guys that have been standing up and producing for Manchester United. You need other players to join them. Marcus Rashford needs to stop sooking and sobbing and start to join the team and play some good football. Bruno Fernandes, it's been hard for him, but he needs to lift as the captain of the club. We need more from the fullbacks, whether it's Wan-Bissaka or Dalot. You need more for them in terms of chance creation. And you need the goalkeeper to make some saves. It seems quite ironic now that David Hayes is close to joining Newcastle during this January transfer window. A player that Manchester United had, the Golden Glove winner, a part of that winning team last season. They lose him, and the moves have changed considering that loss. Now you've got Varane and Casemiro running out as well. It's all sort of falling apart for Manchester United. But with that being said, it sounds to me stupid saying this. I think they'll win the game 2-1 at home. Erik ten Hag seems to get the best out of his players. He needs to bounce back results. If the dressing room's on side or not, players want to play for the club when they hear that Stretford end making the noise in a nice, evening fixture at Old Trafford. So I think just the home ground advantage. They need to bounce back. I think that's why Manchester United get this win. But don't get me wrong, it's going to be a classic battle between the two mid clubs in terms of the Premier League at this current point in time. At the same time, is arguably the biggest game from midweek. It is Aston Villa hosting Man City at Villa Park. Boy, this will be a massive one. Unai Emery and Pep Guardiola, 2 of the great masterminds currently in the Premier League. And they've got their 2 teams. One, Aston Villa playing some great football, and Man City, 3 draws on the trot. Not great football, but still, being really, really exciting to watch. Start with Aston Villa. They come off that 2-2 draw versus Bournemouth. A great first half in terms of created a lot of chances. If Zaniolo had been in some form, you'd think that'd be sort of 3-1, up in that first half and controlling the game. But his sort of poor effort in front of goals and Billy that number 10 role really hurt them. Obviously missing Cash and Diaby as they came off the bench, that probably hurt them as well. But when you've got a guy like Ollie Watkins up front, you've got a guy like Diaby and Leon Bailey and a great midfield like McGinn, Kamara in there, as well as Douglas Luiz. You're going to win games of football and you're going to make comebacks like they did on the weekend. They definitely got goals in them, and we know how good they are at Villa Park. They're so solid there. Goals from Luiz, goals from McGinn, goals from Watkins. They all happen at Villa Park. And I think this is the chance to get at City. They're looking a little bit more vulnerable. They're missing Rodri this game as well. So it's going to be a really interesting case to see, can they do it against a Man City side that is a bit vulnerable right now. They obviously drew 3-3 to Tottenham, conceding a lot of goals once again. But all the controversy was about that last minute chance where Grealish was played through. The referee clearly played advantage, but then calls it back. Maybe he scores, maybe he doesn't, but that's a chance there for City to go and win that game. Once again, though, it hurts them. They go further down the table and amongst the pack here. And if Villa go and beat Man City, they leapfrog City. So that'd be a really, really interesting world if that happens. I just don't see it happening, though. I know Man City are just so good in these bounce back sort of performances after draws, after losses. They come out on fire, and especially Erling Haaland, who had a really, really poor game, missing some sitters in front of goals. So he'll be back to their best. Man City will want to be back to their best. But the biggest thing is Rodri's out. Can Aston Villa, that midfield with Luiz, with McGinn, with Kamara, outwork that Man City midfield? They're not a bad midfield, but without Rodri, they lose a lot of that spark and a lot of that toughness and goodness in that midfield. So if Aston Villa get anything out of this game, it's to exploit the midfield, win the midfield battle, and use their pacey wingers and their great forward Ollie Watkins to get balls in from wide areas, get him into the box or get him behind and score against his City team. That right now, if you want to have Man City at any point in time, maybe it's now. They're looking very vulnerable. I think Aston Villa could do a job, but as I said, I think Man City win this game 3-1. They're just the bounce back machines in these sort of games. But like as I said, it's a hard one to call. I think Haaland will be in the goals. I expect Watkins to score as well, but yeah, it could be a one goes 50-50. I've gone though Man City 3, Aston Villa 1. Our penultimate game for midweek is Everton versus Newcastle. Both teams coming off massive performances. Everton, despite the point deduction, is probably playing one of the best teams in the Premier League right now with the way they're playing their football. Sean Dyche has got this team playing so good with and without the ball right now. And on the back of great defensive efforts from Tarkowski, from Branthwaite, from Mikalenko's in great form. And then from these wide areas with McNeil and Harrison. McNeil's goal last week, so well taken. right where the spiders live, right in the top corner. And right now, they're not just playing die, ship back and counter-attack football. They're still playing a little bit in possession. They're still creating some chances, but they're playing some old school sort of type in wide areas, using their width, getting the ball into the box. And off the back of these two guys up front, DCL and Decore, who's constantly a threat in the area, you're going to get chances when crossing the ball. In terms of Everton, in terms of Newcastle, a great performance, a 1-0 win versus Manchester United. Could have scored 3 or 4. Kieran Trippier, once again, the standout for them. But for me, that midfield with Bruno Guimaraes, with Joel Linton, and most importantly, Miley as well, the young 17-year-old, is looking not out of place at all in the Premier League, looking very confident, going into challenges, carrying the ball, spraying the ball out of the park. He has, been excelled in this, sped up into the starting 11, but he looks like he's not out of place, and he looks like they could have found someone here in this midfield to go help them out. I think this game is going to be nice and tight, though. Everton at home, we know they can cause some problems there. I think Newcastle just get over the line, and the fact they've got the quality in the forward 3 areas, that front 3, Almiron, Gordon, and Isak right now, they just absorb chances. They just create chances for fun. They weren't so clinical on the weekend, but there's only so many times you can give these guys chances before they score goals. I think they'll score some timely goals in this one. It'll be a tight, cagey affair. Won or lost maybe in the midfield areas, but I think the quality up front, the difference in the two teams, that will be the difference in this game. Newcastle, I've got winning 2-1, but don't get me wrong, Everton will really push this Newcastle side. And our final game is Tottenham Hotspur hosting West Ham United, a London battle. An interesting battle as well. Obviously, Tottenham, a 3-3 draw to Man City, was probably the biggest surprise of the weekend. They continue to play this aggressive, front-footed style of football. Ange Postecoglou is ruthless. He's still playing the 4 left-backs in defence. And for moments against that City side, come the second half from 45 to sort of 70 minutes, they were looking the goods there. They were much more controlled in possession. The midfield looked a bit more solid. They're creating more chances. Some great goals from Lo Celso, Kulusevski and Son in that game. So we know they'll create chances. We know they'll score the odd chance as well if they can hold up defensively. And I think with these sort of games, we can, 2 to 3 a week, they're going to start feel the legs of this aggressive style of football where you have to be up and down. And I hope it doesn't get the better of them. I think in this game, though, we're still early in December. They've probably got the legs under them still. I think they'll get the better of West Ham. Obviously, West Ham, it probably suit them going up against this Tottenham team. They like to counter-attack. They like when teams have a high line. But their form in recent weeks hasn't quite been there. Again, so reliant on their midfield for goals and for creation. Ward-Prowse for assists, Souček for goals, Paqueta for goals. There's no real striker. There's a Bowen as like a false 9, and that's hurting his own form as he was so good from the right. So a lot of things are sorted out for West Ham. I just think with the way Tottenham play, I think they'll just overwhelm West Ham. There's only so much you can withstand in terms of a counter-attacking, absorbing sort of defensive style of play. I've got Tottenham winning 3-0. I think if they score first, they'll get a roll and they'll score a couple. And that's why I've got them win this game, 3-0. That then, ladies and gentlemen, wraps up this game week 15 predictions. Massive games through the midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Premier League football at its best. Absolutely can't wait for it. Hopefully these predictions can back it up and we can go for another 8+ points this midweek. That'll absolutely be massive for my predictions going forward. If you guys enjoy the video, please make sure to smash a like on it, subscribe to the Players Zone channel, and share the channel with mates. I know these videos are doing very, very well, and I appreciate all the love and support I'm getting on these videos, so I'll continue to smash them out for you guys. Let me know what you think of my predictions as well. Do you think I got them right for these midweek clashes? So hard to call because some teams will definitely rotate, some teams will take it full strength. So really, really hard to tell. And also comment how much you enjoy the Premier League. We hit that December time. It's super exciting this time of the year with so many games. So it's super exciting for all of us football fans around the world. That being said, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, great rest of your night. Enjoy the Premier League action now that it's here almost every single day. And I'll see you guys in another video very, very soon. Till then, guys, see you later.